Hello and welcome to the show. My name is Todd DeCapua. I'm a guest today, I guess you would say, with Jonathan right here on the show. And it's funny, he and I were just catching up a little bit, probably way too early on the East Coast of the U.S. And Jonathan based out of London, of course, or I guess the greater London area. So, but we were having a little fun, kind of spitballing on everything going on in the world regarding coronavirus and COVID-19, and we said, you know what, as kind of technology evangelists, I dare I use the word maybe experts, I guess, Jonathan, but people that, people kind of like listen, they want to know what's going on. So we said, you know what, let's go ahead and record a really quick intro of something that we've been speaking about that's come out of MIT called SafePaths. And I know that Jonathan's been a little bit more involved than I have, but again, we just wanted to take a couple minutes, record a little bit about, what is this, make you aware of it, and some of the things that are coming up and how you can get involved and how you can help, and some of the thinking around, some of the pieces that we've done in our careers that we could now bring to something that would be, for the better of the general community. And again, this is not just in either the greater London area or on the East Coast of the U.S. I mean, this is a global pandemic. So, we're looking to help share some information, have you be informed, and also enable you to understand how you can go ahead and help a little bit if you would not mind or would want to do that. So Jonathan, I'll hand it over to you for a little bit more on exactly the topic, and then we'll get into the little jive back and forth as we were starting to do already.
Fantastic. Cheers, Todd. My brother from another mother. So so it's really interesting. I've literally, this is hot off the press. I was approached by the test lead or the QA lead for an MIT project, which they're trying to launch this weekend. So they're all working on it. And I've got behind me, I've got the Slack channel at the moment, which anyone could join, which is COVID SafePaths at .slack. So you could join that channel now and start talking. They're looking for any help. They're looking for UX designers, testers, developers, project managers, absolutely anything. And this is to help with the COVID-19 challenge. So SafePaths, let me just give you a little bit of background about what that is. It's a mobile app, and it's kind of looks at kind of three kind of main scenarios, right? The first one is, you've been diagnosed with COVID. And, they're asking you, have you been out anywhere? Do you think you might have, potentially infected anybody without you trying to have to remember where you've got it? We've already got this data. We've got, I've got 4 different Android phones behind me. But, each one of these Android devices will use Google location services, which runs in the background anyway by default and tells you where you've been. And you can see on Google Maps if you go back and look at your history. So that kind of straight away is a freebie for kind of data to say where you've been. And then what the second scenario is that if you're, at home and, you've had to go out shopping and you've crossed paths with one of these people, there's a chance you might have got infected. So part of it is, this is the idea with SafePaths, is it actually then uses that data to say, well, there was somebody who was infected, and you've spent time with them because the your GPS location has coincide, so you're potentially at risk. So again, it's helping prevention because you kind of, part of it is you want to make sure you're not going out, you're not putting yourself at risk, but also if you unfortunately do catch the virus, it also helps you to tell other people to isolate. So it's a really useful idea, and it's a great concept. We're trying to get the mobile app out by the end of the weekend onto test flight. There's already an APK file. If you're an Android user, you can download that from the GitHub repository, which we're going to share. But part of it is this is a call to action, which is kind of what Todd was just saying about getting involved, right? But they're looking for testers to come in and help us because your data can help make this real. So, Todd, your background with this kind of stuff, this is so important, the data.
Absolutely. And, I know that between the work that, some of the bits that you've done in some of the smart city space, as well as, the work that I've had the opportunity to do in many large enterprise organizations around the world, whether it be financial services, insurance, pharmaceutical, medical, every one of these industries, you kind of run into some of the same challenges. And especially as we're talking about data gathering, we're gathering this data off of a mobile device of some sort. I know you and I were chatting, whether you're on a train or you're in a bus or, on the underground, or the metro or something like that. Again, how is it that you're able to capture this information? How is it that then with that data, we'd be able to interrogate it and say, oh yes, it looks like you were in a vehicle, that could have been a car or it could have been a bus. Can we overlay, bus schedules? Could we overlay train schedules to understand? And, maybe more importantly, in looking specifically at New York City and the pandemic there and, retrospectively, like, why is it that it just kind of exploded in New York? Well, a lot of it was so many people on public transport, putting their hands on the rails as they're riding, the subway there. Again, this was one of those main reasons. So again, how is it that being able to capture this kind of data and other geographic data along with network, how much of this network do we need to think about? What type of connections are people on? Again, if we drop, for how long do we drop? Can we still capture it on that end client and then be able to send that data in? But again, all of these elements become important as we think about collecting data. There's a couple other pieces that I'm sure we'll get into, but I guess first and foremost, I think of collecting the data in all of those kind of diverse scenarios, but really bringing that value back to, what is SafePaths at MIT and that project really looking for? It's gathering all of that type of GPS and Bluetooth data for the citizens, for the public, as well as the various health officials. So again, how is it we can do that within this app? Trains, the underground, geographic location, as well as the network, and potentially doing some pretty significant overlays with that data set.
And yeah, I think part of visualization's an absolute key for this, right? Tools. I know a lot of the APM tools have this kind of visualization of data, and we've talked about this in other shows. But it's so important to be able to see that data because, like you just said, the network drops because you're on the metro, right? And then you pop out at another tube station. So the point is they need to correlate that as a journey, the journey being you're on the underground, right? So part of it is quite a complex problem. And, the guys at MIT are working on kind of building algos to identify, he was going around the M25. It wasn't a coach or a bus. There was no other public transport there. You were in isolation. You're a key worker. You're going to work, right? So, there's that kind of scenario. But I think from a tester's perspective, which is kind of where we're doing this call for crowd testers, is, it's your data, right? And your data has got all these historical actions. And first thing, I guess a lot of people who are listening are say, well, what about my privacy, right? Now, there's a couple of things. The first one is, GPX is quite is like an extendable JSON format, which is an international standard, right? So you could load that up into a parser, which the MIT guys have got. And what you could do is it'll visualize, a bit like on Google Maps, right? It'll visualize where you've been. And then what you could do is you can use geofencing. So you could literally highlight your home or, places wherever you is sensitive data you don't want to share.
Some pub that you might frequent.
A pub I'm frequenting when I shouldn't be doing, right? So you get rid of that data, you just highlight it and delete it. But the other stuff you're happy to share, right? You're going, I'm commuting into London, I'm getting on the Jubilee line, I'm getting off at Canary Wharf, I'm then going on the DLR over somewhere else. Each one of those journey ones are incredibly important because we need to be able to create realistic data sets, right? And so we've done this problem before. So I think, as you said, Todd, I did the Copenhagen Smart City project, and that was really interesting because the challenge was exactly like this challenge is today. Is they said to us, look, when it launches, we're expecting about 40,000, 50,000 people to be wanting to use this app, which is obviously a lot of data, right? But the second thing, which was a bit of a challenge, was obviously, people download the app. Sometimes they enable location sense. It pops up and says, "Are you sure you want to share your location?" Yes. You press that, then you're starting to track. But how frequent do you track? Because the more sensors you're sending, the more battery you're going to drain, right? And nobody likes an app which is going to literally run their phone flat completely. Now, there's about 650 data points that Google takes in the background, right? But that kind of would put you quite sporadically around the map. Really, what you need to do to complete the picture is kind of balance off that. Is a kind of saying, well, actually, I want to share my information. I want to share, the frequency of my information. And what we did is we actually got a GPX logo, which you can download off iTunes or Apple, and literally said to them, we paid them in beer, right? The university students, and said, go off, record it, share it, and you'll get a voucher. So they went off and shared their data, gave us all this reference data, which was a delta. It was like a base for us to say, here's the city of Copenhagen, here's people on bikes, here's people on the tube, here's on people on the tram. We've got those different modes. We've identified those modes. Now we've understand the different types of transportation. We can then use synthetically generate historical transactions. So we then took that data and created 5 billion historical transactions, what had happened over a 6-month period, because we needed reference data to be able to train the algorithms to make sure that it is the false positives aren't going to go there. So what happens if you go slightly past somebody and they're in Starbucks and you're in somewhere else? You don't want them to come up with a red alert. You need to have a certain amount of tolerance, right? So we need that reference data. We need to solve this problem. So, sharing your data is going to be a big help, right? But also there's other people out there who still can download the app and use it every day. Mm-hmm. There's key workers, there's in the UK, there's NHS staff. I'm sure you've got a lot of people who are still having to be first line and they're out and about. Yeah. They could register for this app and download it and enable it and start sharing their data.
Yeah, believe it or not, my wife Shannon, who she's one of those essential workers. So yeah, absolutely required to go into work, and I know this would be something that she, amongst other essential personnel, would absolutely leverage and benefit from. But I guess, Jonathan, I'm just summarizing here, like some of the things I heard you just say, like we are, bringing in an APM solution to be able to go ahead and capture this type of data that we need. Clearly, historical things like logging is going to be important, and how is it we can bring that in. You talked about the, JSON file that we can bring in. That's easy. There's other security elements, but we talked about how do we want to anonymize this data. So again, not to have concerns about that piece. But all this data, again, we really want to be able to visualize this in a world-class way and make that visualization available, again, to all the appropriate parties that we've spoken about, so that, whether it be for citizens or public health officials, they're able to reference this data and really start making some informed decisions. We talked about like some of the bits that you and I have done before in capture and replay, especially around the mobile side and what would be required there. And we're going to be reaching out to some partners to see if we can get them to participate in this type of activity as well. And kind of the next stage, this has all been moving very quickly this weekend. Again, I know you mentioned the Slack channel. I would like to mention your website, which you just put up, which is Coronavirus.fo. Again, out there, you've made all of this widely available. All the key links for the homepage out to SafePaths.mit.edu are out there. But I mean, really, this call to action is, if you're into things like testing, if you want to make a difference in the world for COVID-19 or, coronavirus, whatever you want to call it, this is an opportunity where you can sign up and participate in that testing activity. We're also looking at performance. We're looking at security. We're looking at functional. We're looking at all the different devices that are out there in the world. And again, we're not going to pay you in beer, but this is something that is a world pandemic. And I think for people like Jonathan and I, we just want to know, what is it that we can do to help make a little bit of a difference and help to enable people like you, citizens in the world, to be informed about what's going on and maybe where you may or may not be at risk. And then also enabling our public health officials to make these well-informed decisions. So again, that was just kind of a quick summary of all the things that I know we've been talking about. Jonathan, I don't know if there's anything more that I might have missed, but if you want to wrap this up, I think that would be perfect, man.
Yeah, so, thanks for the intro there. So literally this morning I put up Coronavirus.fo, so Foxtrot Oscar, and part of that is a domain anyone could go to. It's a call of action. It's the same from the MIT. It's the same information. It's about people volunteering, as a global community. You've got engineers, you've got data scientists, you've got professors at Harvard and MIT who are also involved in this project. And all you need to do is, if you go to that website, there's a register. There's a literally help. How do I help? Or you can just email me, which is help@coronavirus.fo. SafePaths.fo. That'll come to me, and I'll pass you on to the right kind of people. If you're interested in doing that, I can send you the links. I'll make sure that we can try and get as many people as possible to help with this crowd testing. If you're not going out, that's fine. We're going to get mobile labs that we're going to set up in the cloud. You'll be able to access them. We'll give you the payload and historical data to upload onto it. So you can literally just test it. You can use it. You can give us suggestions, feedback, bug fixing, absolutely anything, right? But you'll be helping save lives, because like Todd was just saying, part of it is the information that's used there we can use to help prevent the infection growing. And I think that's really important, that you can make a real difference. And at the same time, you'll be able to start you'll be able to use some of the technologies and get yourself up to speed with some of the great work that the guys at MIT have been doing. Really interesting project, great community. Come and help us.
Outstanding, Jonathan. Well, I don't think we could have covered it any better, but this is a start. I'm looking forward to our next recording where we'll be able to show you some of the data that is coming in. And, once we get past the MVP, which I was shocked to learn that this has been a huge push through this weekend, and the MVP is going to be going live this week, as soon as tomorrow is what I understand. So, again, Jonathan, kudos to you and the team. I appreciate the opportunity of getting pulled in and being able to help make a difference with you.
Wonderful. Thanks, Todd.